Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. The FA Cup took centre stage as Tuchel's Chelsea and Rodgers' Leicester prepared to clash. Tuchel has been fantastic since he came in, but a trophy would solidify his impact, whilst Rodgers was looking to do the same. In the end, it was Leicester that walked away with the trophy, 1-0 thanks to a terrific Tielemans strike. The XG suggested that Leicester rode their luck at times, but what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. Both managers opted for back threes, as you can see courtesy of our video sponsor, the OneFootball app. OneFootball is the best football app to keep up to date with your favorite teams and players, giving you stats, news, and so much more, and you can get it for absolutely free through the link in the description below. Let's first look at Chelsea in possession, as they dominated the ball. Chelsea were generally able to build up short from the goal kick, as Iheanacho and Vardy tended to be the front two in this phase, staying fairly narrow, with Perez deeper and also narrow in this inside left channel. So, Silva could drop into the box to receive, whilst the other centre-back split wide and could receive as the Leicester wing-backs were occupied. But in open play, both teams using such similar shapes meant that there was often a 2 versus 2 in midfield at times when Leicester looked to press higher up the pitch. As a result, not much of Chelsea's play came through the centre of the pitch. But there were still some interesting plays through this zone. Down the left-hand side in particular, Alonso tended to push high, and Mount or Ziyech, the two consistently switched, would drop into the space. And at times, the right centre-back would push up to press whoever had dropped so that he couldn't receive. However, at times, Alonso's high positioning made this complicated, as there would be a gap left in the back line, where a potential ball over the top could cause Leicester problems. So, when the centre-back was hesitant to follow, it meant that Chelsea could look for penetrative passes into the free man between the lines. And if a Leicester centre-back then came out to pressure the man, Chelsea's forwards generally looked for a first-time layoff into another man between the lines. But with Leicester's front two narrow, and where Perez could offer protection down the left, we did see Rudiger, as he loves to do, push up into the midfield at times to try and draw a Leicester man and free up one of his teammates higher up. However, to break up the stalemate through the centre, Chelsea gave Kanté more freedom. Due to his dynamism, Kanté was often able to play around his man, using 1-2s with the forwards or Jorginho to get the wrong side of his marker, and Chelsea would then have an overload against the back line. But Leicester using a back three meant that it was extremely difficult to take advantage of any spaces that did appear. But in the second half in particular, Chelsea's shape looked more like a 3-5-2, with Mount and Kanté higher and Jorginho being a single pivot, so that Chelsea with their midfield three would have a 3 versus 2 advantage against Leicester and could keep better hold of the ball. However, this shape was partly responsible for the goal they conceded. Chelsea have their usual back three build-up shape, whilst Perez is defending the inside left channel as he often did. And Jorginho is now the sole pivot, with Kanté and Mount flanking him higher in the midfield. So when the ball is intercepted by Perez, with Kanté high, Jorginho is vulnerable. Thomas advances high, and with Jorginho 2 versus 1 down, he has to go across to cover, which leaves Tielemans unmarked. And Tielemans drives forward and produces an outstanding finish, so it is hard to put any blame on anyone. And once behind, Chelsea changed their structure, where before they used a general front five, Kanté now looked to push between the lines earlier, with James or Rudiger being the second pivot alongside Jorginho. And we did at times see Kanté's presence give the wide centre-back 2 men to deal with, opening up more room for one of Chelsea's men to operate. But with Leicester's pivots sitting so deep, it was generally difficult to get between the lines in the first place. We also saw the advantage of Leicester using a back five early on, as when Chelsea overloaded the left, Luke Thomas at left wing back was still in a great position to prevent Azpilicueta receiving the switch in a lot of space. And on the transition, even before they went behind, Leicester looked dangerous. Vardy in particular continually made runs into this left channel. This may be why James, instead of Azpilicueta, was the right centre-back, as his extra pace would give Thiago a bit more protection against Vardy running in behind. But what did Leicester do with the ball? Leicester often looked to play out short as well from goal kicks, as Chelsea often pressed with the front two whilst their second forward dropped onto one of the pivots. And Leicester's back three generally shifted to a 4, with Castagna or Fofana moving into the right back position, so Schmeichel could give Leicester the 3 vs 2 advantage in this deep phase, whilst Fofana would be a free outlet man. But in open play, Chelsea often switched to a front 3, with Mount and Ziyech deeper than Werner, as this allowed them to stop the progress of the wide centre-backs, something which Leicester were unable to do with Rudiger. But it was down the left-hand side that Leicester had success. And this was because Perez, rather than being a dedicated attacking midfielder, tended to drift left, especially when Azpilicueta had moved high to press Thomas. So at times, Perez could receive behind the wing-back and drive higher up the pitch, or alternatively, play Vardy in down the line. However, for the most part, Conte was alert and always quick to cover across in these regions, stopping any progress infield. But this would also mean at times Jorginho would once again be left 2 vs 1 down in midfield, so if the pass did get through, he was struggling. But even with this space, for the most part, Leicester didn't create much, only having 6 shots, but they did have the one shot that counted. Overall, Rodgers would be delighted with the win and getting his hands on his first major trophy in English football. Tuchel will be bitterly disappointed with Chelsea not being quite at their best, and would desperately want revenge against the same opposition in midweek to stay in a strong position to finish in the top 4. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down below. And if you want even more content whilst helping to support the channel, consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/footballmadesimple. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as access to the upcoming FMS video podcast. And a big thanks to Ryan Pork and Happy Rock for their support on Patreon. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.